Hello, everyone. I'm Maggie.
And I'm Kelly.
Thank you for choosing to watch our pre-recorded presentation on memes. The title of our talk is Worüber man nicht sprechen kann, darüber muss man memen, which is a play on a quote by Wittgenstein, whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must meme. We're replacing Wittgenstein's original schweigen, or the word silence, with memen, which is a German verb that means to meme, a form of visual communication. So, making and sharing memes is now a regular form of everyday communication. People around the world engage with memes in a stunning number of ways. They provide entertainment and social connection. They offer humor to help us deal with difficult situations. They're used as multimodal objects in the classroom to enhance visual literacy. And they serve as powerful tools for social justice movements and mobilizing people toward political action. Memes have become such a common form of visual communication that they're capable of nurturing our most intimate relationships. Sharing them is even a meaningful way of expressing love and affection.
Perhaps memes seem rather simple, but from pedagogical, linguistic, and philosophical points of view, they are surprisingly sophisticated and contentious. Type memes are into Google, and you'll most likely get some competing answers, like I did and captured in this image. Are memes merely funny? Are they life or the DNA of the soul? Or are memes dead or maybe even bad for society? And why do we care? Today, we're going to discuss how the meme's use of tension between image and language is not an isolated phenomenon unique to our digital age. By broadening our perspective and taking into account the historical and theoretical contexts of modern communication technologies, we will demonstrate how the meme's rhetorical and meaning making techniques connect to those of mid century mass media and globalization, as well as post war visual language projects associated with a thing called concrete poetry, which we will dig into later. We do this first by giving a brief history of the meme. Next, we draw out similarities in the definition of memes in the writings by early concrete poets. Grounding our understanding of the meme within this history enables critical analysis to consider parallels, promises, problems, and potentialities of this transliterary, transnational communicative object. All right, folks, let's talk about the history of memes. Pithy continuously remixed and recirculated around the globe. Memes enhance visual literacy while often encapsulating complicated subjects. The term meme is rooted in evolutionary biology and was coined by Richard Dawkins in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene. According to Dawkins, uh, according to Dawkins, a meme is a unit of cultural transmission or imitation. The term comes from the Greek mimema, meaning imitated, which Dawkins supposedly shortened to rhyme with gene. This is sort of a nod to how the process of natural selection determines the survival of certain genes and how this somewhat parallels the way culture evolves. Dawkins' conception includes a wide range of examples, from a catchy tune to jokes or the latest fashion trends. But here we're solely focusing on the phenomenon of the internet meme. In her book, Because Internet, Gretchen McCullough traces how online interactions have shaped how we communicate, and she includes the meme in her analysis, describing it as, quote, something that's remade and recombined, spreading as an atom of internet culture, end quote. As I mentioned earlier, the visual component of the meme essentially forms a kind of meaning making template, and the words provide nuance and specificity. Memes are constructed of an image wherein text is often integrated, an object mirroring some sort of relevant contemporary cultural topic. Scholar Lamore Schiffman, who has worked extensively on memes and authored the 2013 book Memes in Digital Culture, notes, quote, term meme is particularly suitable to describe this glut of reworks as the concept deliberately connotes mimesis and is flexible enough to capture a wide range of communicative intentions and actions, spanning all the way from naive copying to scornful imitation. Memes can also produce an immediate affective, as in emotional, impact. Here are some examples: Galaxy Brain, Distracted Boyfriend, Surprised Pikachu, and the ship stuck in the canal. As you see, each of these is essentially a template that can be personalized and changed depending on context and needs. The visual component of the meme forms the meaning making template, and the changing words provide nuance and specificity. In addition to the image text tension and template function, memes often circulate in digital spaces, getting passed around between subcultures on the internet. This graphic illustrates one way we can understand the life cycle of a meme, from conception on image boards such as 4chan or 8chan to maturation and mass circulation on corporate social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, and its eventual reclamation by companies for advertising and marketing purposes. And of course, there's a meme for that.
Okay, so we understand that the meme is a multimodal object that both responds and contributes to cultural experiences and exchange by way of its capacity to visually communicate a multiplicity of content. In other words, while the internet meme makes use of few words, it can say a lot because the tension between image and text. Here we have a case where the assertion less is more is categorically correct. By avoiding explanatory language, the meme playfully translates content into something that can be quickly understood visually. This also affords the reader greater ease in accessing the meanings of messages delivered in other languages. Here is an example. The words you and memes and their physical proximity to the image of the bulldozer and the ever given cargo ship work together to communicate an idea. While the viewer associates themselves with the stuck ship, their attention oscillates between the words you and memes. As readers, we want to read the text, but we also understand that the images have as much, perhaps more meaning in what is communicated by the object. The Ever Given Ship meme is meta in that it effectively performs what memes do in society. There's a lot of expectations for memes to contribute to our communicative interactions these days, but it's debatable whether or not this strategy is effective. The meme is communicating to us that we rely perhaps too much on memes. Ultimately, to experience a meme is a negotiation of the senses between physical experience and cognitive interpretation. There's much more to discuss on this, but for the sake of time, here we can invite concrete poetry into this conversation on visual language. The idea that everyday visual communication technologies like the meme can influence and shape society was also put forth by concrete poets. In the 1950s, concrete poetry emerged as a new genre, cropping up independently around the globe. Defining characteristics of concrete poetry, which is sometimes called shape poetry, include the isolation of simple words and the use of graphic space as a compositional element. These techniques work in similar fashion to the meme to bring the formal and visual aspects of printed text into focus and allow semantic dimensions to occur through visual connections. In simple terms, concrete poetry uses the typographical arrangement of linguistic elements to convey meaning. The historical moment in which concrete poetry first occurred is significant, when most of Europe, not to mention the rest of the world, was trying to rebuild after widespread destruction caused by World War II. Eugen Gomringer is a Bolivian-born Swiss-German concrete poet, an important founder, and often considered the father of concrete poetry. Back then, Gomringer regarded the new poet as a conscious participant in a team of designers shaping the modern post-war environment, and he proposed that poetry's relevance in society should be elevated to match that of science and technology. Therefore, a relationship between modern architecture, design, and society was rather important. And the visual form of the concrete poem was a core interest and directly related to political and social changes that occurred at mid-century and which forced many countries, especially Germany, to adjust to living in an occupied and restructured space. Gomringer's vision concerned an aesthetic restructuring of society and involved reducing poetry down to only a few words, relating them spatially rather than solely syntactically. Let's take a look at an example. Ping Pong, constructed in 1951, was Gomringer's first concrete poem. Unlike the internet meme, there is no physical image at play here. Nevertheless, the poem excites in our consciousness an image by what it does, specifically by mimicking sense qualities or the kinetic movement of playing the game. The zigzag pattern our eyes follow from top left to bottom right implies something about the physical pattern of the ball. The visual movement is reinforced through word patterning and repetition. We might see the whole object as a record of the game, a kind of physical and visual transcript capturing the pattern of a ball hit by right handed players. The concrete poem, Gomringer explained, is like an image, a readily comprehensible shape with a visual image. He predicted that this visualization would contribute to a universally comprehensible language. The desire to create functional poetic objects that could be understood by everyone was motivated by mobility, transnationality, and modern design, along with a utopian intention to influence an aesthetic restructuring of society. Emerging simultaneously in Brazil, Sweden, Switzerland, Germany, Austria, North America, and then later in Japan, Taiwan, and elsewhere, concrete poetry was concerned with an emergent collective consciousness created by a common emphasis on the experience of language in an internationalized social sphere. Concrete poetry's use of basic vocabulary almost eliminates the issue of translation, and it is perhaps unsurprising that Gomringer's own conception of the ideal meeting place of a polyglot society was the airport. The airport, where connections to the whole world are constructed, where only a limited number of necessary and unambiguous instructions, signals, and signs exist, and which must be made understandable to everyone, regardless of his mother tongue, played the role of an ideal structural model for me. And so he imagined the concrete poem as a useful object for a new modern society, intelligible to people all over the world, much like airport signs convey information quickly and efficiently to people traveling between and across various borders. The concrete poem seeks to facilitate interconnection and enact global relationships. It is also important to consider how American led propaganda and advertisement were influencing the political and economic reconstruction of Europe, uh, of Western Europe in the mid 20th century. A culture of capitalism was taking root through mass media, stimulating a consumer oriented society. Advertisement had formidable influence on the living language of the time, and concrete poets understood that the mechanisms employed to strengthen capitalism would inevitably change modern communication. In fact, Gomringer's 1954 assessment of media and its future anticipated our present day technologies and how information is transmitted via social media. People today want to understand and be understood quickly. Medium is the direct language, and the print, writing, and reading are unpleasant, requiring much effort. To be sure, the resemblance concrete poems have with corporate logos and advertisement slogans is no accident. Gomringer himself was employed as a designer and head of advertisement at various companies. These are two examples of his marketing work.
Both concrete poetry and internet memes can be understood as icons of their respective contemporary worlds, and the forms share contexts shaped by mass media, corporate influence, and globalization. Shifting our focus from parallels, we're going to address their respective promises and problems. Concrete poetry strives for universality by emptying itself of language. Reinforcing this goal, the messages can be received worldwide, partly thanks to the unbound signifying potential of blank or negative space. But gender and culture are inherently carried in language, and we can also argue that any work of art serves as a repository of historical, social, and political information. Similar to, yet arguably more successful than the concrete poem, due to global tech infrastructure and interconnectivity, the internet meme has immeasurable capacities to transcend borders, languages, and cultures. While they do not go as far as concrete poetry manifestos and promising universality, memes are indeed widely accessible and influential in ways that concrete poetry tried to be. Making, sending, curating, and reposting memes constitutes a series of democratic, participatory experiences, unlike the self important image work of a concrete poet. Concrete poetry claims that meaning is made in the mind of the beholder, thereby absolving the author creator of any responsibility of presenting a particular political agenda. It also claims to avoid what Lamore Schiffman calls stance, or, quote, information about the communicative positioning of the addresser in relation to text or message, the context, and other potential speakers, end quote. However, as is the case with both concrete poetry and memes, meaning is unstable because it is produced by the reader viewer, and the template framing can have any number of cultural connotations that preclude attempts at universality. Before moving on, it's crucial to note here that the concept of universality in itself, especially as deployed by white Europeans, has been thoroughly debunked by such theorists as Sylvia Wynter. She explains how the white cisgender heterosexual male perspective becomes the default. In other words, the vigorous discursive and institutional reelaboration of the central overrepresentation of what is now globally hegemonic ethnoclass. It's the world of men. So, such an assumption causes harm. Contemporary examples in the digital sphere abound. Memes can include any number of harmful, so racist, sexist, ableist, transphobic, etc., biases, and they can be misused by their creators and consumers, as is the case for the appropriation of Pepe the Frog by white supremacists and the widespread phenomenon of digital blackface, a term that describes when white people use reaction gifs or memes featuring Black people. Legacy Russell unpacks this in her project, Black Meme. Moreover, Black, Indigenous, and people of color content creators on platforms like TikTok and Instagram face multifaceted exploitation, including shadow banning accounts and white people making money and gaining success, all while copying and not crediting or paying Black folks. So, just a note, this theft and appropriation trend has been shaping social media for years, and we understand it as a continuation of a colonial power's origin story, stolen labor on stolen land. A conversation about the commercialization of memes would be incomplete without considering the larger cyber infrastructure at work. Surveillance capitalism, helmed by tech companies that collect users' data and sell it to the highest bidder. Even the dankest meme account is complicit in the extraction, mediated by a platform that is monetizing our attention. Some have argued that memes are internet ephemera, likening them to fast food in both our consumption and their nutritional value of such supposedly vapid objects. The materiality of a meme might be suspect, and yet memes have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars in the form of non-fungible tokens.
We make these comparisons between concrete poetry and memes to examine the lineage of the meaning making technique of tension between language and image. We see how concrete poetry aligned itself to the project of global capitalism via the techniques of mass media for the purpose of consumerism. Memes started off as a democratic sign system that uses similar meaning making methods established by concrete poetry. However, as we have shown, they have been co opted for capitalistic pursuits, using methods of communication understandable across borders and geographies. Nevertheless, memes are a more affective way of communicating online, hence their capacity to connect us and their potential as tools for education and political mobilization.